sexual appeal, changes to classic visuals, and even changes to the characters' ages. DC doesn't hold back when it comes to messing up with their heroes. And this video is the proof. Today, we will see stories that DC prefers to hide because they caused a lot of controversy, some of which would never even be published today.
1. Hal Jordan. This is not only one of DC's biggest controversies, but also one of the most controversial comic book stories in general. To this day, a few people remember it and bring up the discussion, but it's something DC would certainly prefer to forget. Hal Jordan is the primary Green Lantern of the publisher and the most powerful within the Corps, receiving a lot of attention since he joined the organization. I believe everyone knows that Green Lanterns are intergalactic police officers whose primary tool is a green ring powered by willpower, with the only limit being the user's imagination. So why am I mentioning all this? Simple. Within the Corps, there was a character named Arisia Rab, who was 13 years old. She was originally from the planet Graxos 4 and was the daughter of a former Green Lantern, the Lantern of Sector 2815. She had a platonic crush on Hal Jordan, and the two eventually met on Earth, where Arisia unconsciously used her ring to appear older so they could be together. Later on, the power battery on Oa lost its power, leaving some lanterns without energy, including Arisia. Gradually, she reverted to her true age, and their relationship ended. But it's quite problematic to include something like this in a comic book for obvious reasons. 2. Electric Superman. At one point, Superman's comic book sales began to decline, which of course worried the company. Instead of creating more engaging stories for their main character, DC decided to employ a trick and alter a classic Superman formula. They removed his iconic costume, powers, and even his skin tone. In Superman 123, released in 1997, the reborn Superman had blue skin and energy-based powers, requiring a blue and white containment suit. Things got even worse when this electric Superman split into two, giving rise to Superman Blue and Superman Red, who had some behavioral differences. Of course, the color difference was obviously due to the original costume being heavily blue and red, but that doesn't make the idea any better. Superman Red, for example, was more temperamental and impulsive. It took quite a while, several months, but fortunately DC eventually reversed these changes and restored the original Superman. Interestingly, John Kent, Superman's son, developed electric powers, and his form with these powers closely resembles the blue Superman. 3. Baby Batman. This is such a ridiculous plot that it's almost incomprehensible how anyone had the courage to publish it. During a battle with villains, Batman is hit by a technological machine that starts turning him into a little boy. Yes, this machine transforms Batman into a miniature version of Bruce Wayne. But did Batman stop fighting crime just because he was under 5 feet tall? Not at all. He even created a very cute uniform suited to his size, trained to build muscle even as a baby, and continued taking down the bad guys. However, this story ended as quickly as it began. Baby Batman and Robin returned to fight the same villains who caused all this trouble. And in a page turn, Batman is put back in the machine and returns to being an adult. We don't even see this transformation happen, nor do we understand how it actually occurred, because the comic book doesn't show it. Another amusing detail is that they made a display frame to keep the Baby Batman costume on display in the Batcave. 4. Baby Superman. Well, if Baby Batman wasn't strange enough, DC had the brilliant idea to do the same thing with Superman, and in my opinion, this one was even worse. In one issue, which was exclusively focused on Lois Lane, a Superman from an alternate universe ended up in the main DC universe and became a child. Yes, these older comic stories often lack detailed explanations. Things just happen for no apparent reason. One of the issues with this story is that during this time, Lois Lane and Lana Lang both tried to win over this child Superman, even though he was just a kid. Both wanted him to fall in love with one of them, and it actually worked because at one point, he returned to his adult form and married both of them simultaneously. The reason this story is so controversial is the same as with Hal Jordan and Arisia. Some things just shouldn't be included in a storyline. 5. Starfire. To show that controversy isn't exclusive to classic stories, let's talk about a controversy that made waves back in 2011. When DC launched the New 52 line, they released a series featuring Red Hood. However, many people were dissatisfied with the portrayal of Starfire. Right from the first pages of the comic, the first image of Starfire shows her in a highly sexualized manner while taking a beach bath, and a boy even takes a secret photo of her. From the very beginning, it was clear that the direction of the story wasn't going well. The situation worsened as Starfire was depicted as essentially a robot, with no understanding of how to live in society. She lost her depth as a character, no longer remembered Dick Grayson, the man she had loved for so long. DC simply erased, without explanation, one of the publisher's most beloved couples, which of course upset its fans. Additionally, the fact that she kissed Jason Todd and also slept with Roy Harper, the Red Arrow, further exacerbated the situation. 6. The Dark Knight. Dark Knight returns as one of the best-written stories in comics and received a fitting adaptation with an animation that, to this day, is the best when it comes to Batman versus Superman. However, I'm talking about The Dark Knight Returns Part 1, because Part 2 is arguably one of the worst things ever written and drawn. After the success of The Dark Knight Returns, DC thought they could release anything featuring an older Batman, and it would be a guaranteed hit. They seemed to think, if it worked before, it will work again. Unfortunately, Frank Miller didn't seem to be very inspired at the time, and right from the start, the artwork was striking for how incredibly bad it was. Some panels are even difficult to understand. Additionally, the comic features a scene where Superman and Wonder Woman have sex, destroying the planet in the process due to their combined strength. There's nothing redeeming about this comic, but at least The Dark Knight 3. The Master Race was somewhat better, which eased readers' frustration a bit. 7. Batman. One of the most memorable scenes in DC Comics is when Bane breaks Batman's back, taking him off the streets of Gotham and out of the superhero life. However, the problem arises during Batman's rest after this incident. A truly insane guy, Jean-Paul Valley, decided to don a suit of armor and went out fighting crime in the most violent way possible. This guy was seriously hardcore and nothing like the real Batman would ever approve of. Additionally, he was tarnishing Batman's legacy and damaging his reputation with the authorities. Nowadays, people don't view this storyline as terribly awful, but at the time it was released, it was highly disliked by fans. So much so that DC basically tried to ignore this story for a while. But that's it for today's video. If you remember any other stories that DC regretted making, leave them in the comments and I might make a part 2. If you enjoyed it, give a like and subscribe to support the channel. And let's rise to the top of all the nerd channels on YouTube together.